the moment you feel ki, this is my 20s, this is my prime time, and I put in effort and result aana chahiye tha. When you're looking at things from 1 to 3 year perspective, obviously this failure like starts looking like a very big thing. But the moment time scale is 50, 60 years, 2, 3 years here and there don't matter. So I think that's something that I keep reminding myself even today, whenever there is like any fear of failure.
Hey PK, thanks a lot for taking our time to do this. I know we've been wanting to do this for a while. So good to finally chat.
Same here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So love the journey that you've taken with Bewakoof. I know it's, one of the earliest startups in India, especially as a brand. Would love to go back a few years when you were younger, early days in school, how you decided to get into engineering, any early influences that, decided, made you an entrepreneur. I think if you could start with that, would be great.
Sure. So for me, engineering was just something that I looked up to my elder brother. He was an engineer, and for some reason, I looked up to him and wanted to become one. And the way IIT happened, so I am a dyslexic. I think that has really affected a lot of my career choices. But getting in IIT would not have been one, definitely. And because I flunked in my pre-board exams during the 10th class and could not have non-medical, so none of the school in Ludhiana was giving me. That's where I studied. Some of the toppers of the class were moving to Kota, and because some of the schools in Kota were willing to give me an admission in non-medical, so I went along and somehow made it to IIT. And when you come to IIT, I think you get exposure to a lot of creative fields. For me, it was dramatics, for dance. IIT, the bigger universities do give you that exposure. So I realized that like something that I was not blessed on the analytical side have been compensated on the creative side. And entrepreneurship seemed to be an option where you can really play with your creative side, especially if you're building a consumer brand. I think it requires a lot of creativity. The other influences that were there that got me into the entrepreneurial journey. Obviously, the ecosystem was not much back in 2008-9, so the influences were not really around. Happened to read a book called The Polyester Prince, on which a movie also came, Guru, which was an Ambani story. That really glorified the risk taking that entrepreneurs do. At that point of time, another movie had come called The Pursuit of Happiness, that really romanticized the entire struggle that is there in the entrepreneurial journey. And I still remember, I think when I started my early startup with my first co-founder, so the movie really glorified the part where it says, this part of my life is called struggle. So मैं सुबह सुबह अपने co-founder को लात मार के उठाता बोलता था चल struggle के दिन चल रहे. So we ended up really like romanticizing with this struggle also. Then another movie that really influenced was The Schindler List. That really highlighted the noble causes that entrepreneurship can associate with, the societal good that you can do. And then also happened to read Richard Branson's autobiography. And again, he was also dyslexic and really resonated with me, how he created a consumer brand and also how his journey was and how entrepreneurship was a right fit for him. So it became really clear to me that if there is some profession that I need to go into, entrepreneurship is a right fit for the kind of skill set I have, from risk taking to maybe like I feel that I have willpower, and then also something that can be handy for the creative side. So that's how I just made my mind that this is going to be my lifetime.
Understand. And when you were in college, you tried your hand at actually starting companies. I'm sure आपने movies college में देखी होंगी, many of them.
Yeah, all of these were the.
Insta में बहुत movie देखते हैं. So how was that experience? When did you do that? What did you learn from those experiences before you started Bewakoof?
Sure. So I was in third year in my college when I started my first venture. My first venture was a lassi venture. I opened up a couple of outlets which specialize in selling freshly prepared flavored lassi. Back then, a Starbucks story was coming out of US, and that was a big story. It was at that point of time, Starbucks was yet to enter any country beyond US and Europe. So it was a big story that was growing up. In India, CCD was created. And some of the tea ventures that you see right now were in early stage. People are trying that, can we make a brand around Indian drink? So rather than picking up tea, which I thought many people are going into, I thought the healthier drinks would be fascinating. So I picked up lassi, and the idea was to add milkshakes and juices and make one go-to parlor for drinks. So that's how that was the first idea. And one of the early learnings in that idea was the launch itself. So again, a lot of wisdom around was not available. There was nothing called minimum viable product, MVP, back then. So I just got into with no guidance. For 6 months I was doing research, how to have a good GTM, a good go to market, how to keep iterating the product on our own and keep making it better. And already 6-7 months we had made no actual movement on it. But then I happened to meet a gentleman, and who ended up becoming a mentor also, and he said that if you have a product, start selling it. That really resonated with me. So within the next 1 month, I just went out, took a place, whatever product we had innovated so far, we just started selling it out. And we realized that the improvement that we might have made in 6 months on the product itself, getting a better taste, getting better quality on the product. Once we started selling with the consumer feedback, those feedbacks, they started becoming really the improvement started becoming really fast because of that. So that's how we hit upon MVP back then. If you have a product, start selling it. The other fascinating learning very early on in the journey was dealing with failure. Obviously, that venture did not work out well. And when you're dealing with failure, there are two battles that you need to overcome. There is the internal battle, right? Your own expectations from yourself. You benchmark yourself against certain standards, and you expect a lot from yourself. And then there is the other battle, which is external. There's that unsaid pressure that you feel, what will people think, expectations that people have from you. So I think in that failure, I definitely overcome the second one for life, which was the external one. Because what happened when I opened up Khadke GLASSI, that was the name of the venture. A lot of people came to me. Everyone said that this is so fascinating. This is going to go places, and you're really following your passion. You want to do it. You have you have the guts to do it. What you're doing is so great, and this will work out well. But the moment it shut down after a year, half of the people that were really praising the move back then, they came back saying that हमें तो पता ही था कि ये ऐसा ही होगा. So then I realized कि okay, people always they change with the wind. Like this should always be the last concern. Through success and failure, people will change their opinion. So I think that early on, like that failure, like anything related to failure externally, that I overcame, and I think that was for good. And never again like that thing has ever crossed my mind.
No, that's amazing. And you know, it's easy when you say it now, but obviously when you failed for the first time and when that actual experience happened, you've gone to a good college, you obviously have some sort of self-respect, ego, all
Yeah.
of that just, obviously gets hurt. How do you deal with that? How do you manage the impact of failure, especially when it happens to something that's your own baby?
Yeah, definitely. That's one big challenge. I think the biggest battles are always internal. I think though learn to overcome the external one, the bigger battles are always internal. And I think back then also what happened was not much people were really talking about any kind of failure, any kind of ups and downs that when you go through the entrepreneurial journey, because the ecosystem was missing. People around you especially were not able to relate to your problem, because startups were unheard of. What you are going through, people are not able to relate to it. So I think at that point of time, it really like comes down to uh, giving yourself a long-term perspective, where if you're going to have a working life till 65, 70, and maybe like with medical advancement, we might end up working 75, 80s also. If you tell yourself that the journey is long, right, and these are like just small milestones on that journey. So I think that long-term perspective really helps, where these on that time scale of maybe 50, 60 years, having that setback of maybe 1 year you have put into something and not getting a reward, or maybe 2 years you have put into something and not getting a reward. The moment you feel this is my 20s, this is my prime time, and I put in effort and result aana chahiye tha. When you're looking at things from 1 to 3 year perspective, obviously this failure like starts looking like a very big thing. But the moment time scale is 50, 60 years, 2, 3 years here and there don't matter. So I think that's something that I keep reminding myself even today, whenever there is like any fear of failure.
I love that anecdote, and it's something that I can personally relate to as well. You know, I had my own startup journey and now working products. So love that. So our topic for this week's episode, and I would like to dive into that, is making a youth-focused D2C brand. And let's start off with the name. And what's the story behind the name?
The story name. So I think it was like rather than accidental, it was more an engineered name that we wanted to keep back then. Because when we were we thought that we are going to make a brand which is going to be expressive and differentiated, and that's the gap that we saw in the market. We wanted the first fascination was going for something which is definitely exotic for Indians and aspirational for Indians, because that was a playbook in India. So you will be surprised to know that if you already don't know that the brands like Van Heusen, Allen Solly are all Indian brands, and they are owned by one company called Madura Garments, right? So obviously, if you know you're buying something from Madura Garment, your aspirational value will be lost. But they had this fascinating brand name, and that was a playbook that worked in India for 3-4 decades. We were always our aspiration was only for the foreign-looking things and foreign-looking products. But when we started out, we also kept some random name. The first brand that we launched was actually called Crazy or something like that, and it was just like random name just to sound aspirational. It's not Indian. But the moment we kept that name and we started with it like very initial, like 1.5 month of response. Even when we told the people name, people never remembered it, and we thought that okay, we are too late to the party. That playbook might have worked 2 decades before. But this is going to take a lot of time to establish a brand. So let's do something which is very true to what we stand for, very true to the brand ethos that we are building. If you're going for something expressive and differentiated, we need something differentiated. So that's where we kept Bewakoof as the name. And then there was another belief that we had. We thought that the time for Indian brands has come and will come. So now you will see that there are so many companies which have aspirational quotient also. They take pride in saying we are made in India, not outside. They have Indian names and people are paying that aspirational value to it also. So we thought that such a time will come. And back in 2012, it was a little difficult to digest it. Such a time will come. But somehow things have changed in India, and now the Indian consumers are actually looking forward to the Indian products. So that's how the name Bewakoof came.
Incredible story. And how did you go about validating the idea initially? I mean, you were so engineered in your approach to your name. I'm sure you really thought about the metrics that you were measuring. And it's specifically early on, it's one of the big questions, right?
Right. As I said, the biggest learning from the first startup was that if you have a product, start selling it. Back then, we didn't have a term MVP for it. So when we thought about we need to launch this piece and we need to test out the market, the easiest piece was just launching it. So we made a small launch. We actually launched in the IIT Bombay cultural festival itself, Mode Indigo. We launched offline, and there we had a brand ready. We launched the brand. We had our products, early set of products. And whatever we prepared for, we were sold out. It's a 4-day festival. We were sold out in just 2.5 days. And after that, I think the product market fit, we could see that there is definitely a need for such kind of products among the young people. Back then, again, there was no name millennials or Gen Z for the 20 years old. But we could see that there's a need. We made products accordingly and we launched them, and they worked phenomenally well. Building D2C and going online was accidental. So when we launched at Mode Indigos, and we were sold out in 2.5 days. A lot of people, they loved the products. Maybe their friends had bought and they wanted the same. So when people kept coming back for us to our exhibition stall, we just on the fluke, we said that our website is coming, you can buy. And the reason we said it because most of the people who come to Mode Indigo, they come from outside colleges. We could not have said them okay, so soon it will be available at retail store at near your place. That was not going to happen. So maybe you can buy it online. So that's how we ended up going online. And again, in 1.5 months, we were ready. We launched it online and again had another proof of concept.
Incredible. And so can you tell us how you segment your users, and like do you I mean, when you think about a typical D2C brand, do you kind of split it up and market to different groups of users, or and can you tell us a little bit about the product evolution that kind of came with those different segments?
Sure. Right. So there are broadly the TG that we cater to is the age group 18 to 35.
Yeah.
And obviously when we started out, the TG was young, like we were only catered to 18 to 24. And then as time went by, we kept increasing the TG. But 18 to 35 is something that we want to focus on. Our broad focus is going to be the youth of the country. The nomenclature will keep on changing. Millennials will go, Gen Z will come, something else will come. But broadly, this is the TG that we want to focus on to. And within this TG, obviously, when you're 18, you will be wearing things more on the comfort side, more on the casual wear side. And as you tend towards 30, 35, you start going out to occasions, you start going out to office. Then the catalog starts looking like polos and shirts. All of these categories do come in. And that's how the Bewakoof products evolved. So we started with one category of t-shirt, but we always knew what our why is. Our why was always adding lightheartedness to life through expressive products. And we kept getting into one lifestyle category after the other and adding expressions to it all along. So that is what the playbook of Bewakoof is, and that's how the product has evolved. Where we started with t-shirt, and now we are doing everything under the sun, under fashion. And we recently launched activewear. We're also launching innerwear. So that's how the product is evolving over time.
I think we all know Bewakoof for its quirky content on social media. How have you guys managed to consistently churn out, quality content?
Yeah, before getting into it, I'll tell you about the inspiration, like what was the philosophy behind us doing quirky content. Again, I think right now, the last 3-4 years, people have seen Zomato doing it really well, and now has become the norm. A lot of internet companies have started doing something like it. 7-8 years back, everyone used to question is, if you're a brand, then why are you doing quirky content? What's the relation? We always saw that as the extension of the products itself, extension of the brand Bewakoof itself. And we actually took inspiration from a very successful story in content, which is Amul. So you must have seen that Amul always has a quirky take on some event that happens in India through the comics that they'll have. But the thing that we saw, the opportunity that we saw was that if Amul is doing it offline, they can only do it once a month. There is a distribution cost to your content. Amul puts up hoardings to get spaces in newspaper. But when Facebook and Instagram was picking up back in 2013, 14, 15, we saw it an opportunity that you can do contemporary quirky content on daily basis. And that's what we started doing, and it worked wonder for us. Today, we have 6.5 million followers across Instagram, across Facebook combined. And the way we have kept onto the quality of the content and also keep churning out good content all through the years. The secret sauce is just betting on content, just betting on the talent when it comes to content. It's an artistic field. Here, what happens is if few people get it, they really get it. And if people don't get it, they can't get it. So the idea is always to keep experimenting, keep spotting, keep discovering new talent. And when you see that you have got the right talent, the right set of team consisting of the right talent, you just back them up. You just don't let them go. You just keep backing them up, let them fail, let them innovate ideas, let them try out ideas. But 60-70% of the time they keep getting it right. And for any brand, that's like a very good ratio to achieve.
And wanted to talk a bit about distribution across channels and what does that look like, and curious about one trend as well that I've seen quite a bit, especially in Southeast Asia. Any plans to open an offline store?
Yeah, on distribution, the way it looks like right now is that 85% of the sales still happen on a platform. Our biggest achievement has been creating a destination where people are coming to us and buying directly from us. That was the true thesis of D2C, where it's direct to consumer, D2C brands. Obviously, it's a strength adding more distribution, but the core is selling direct to consumer. That is something that we have intact, and still 85% of transactions happen there. Having said that, right now we are focusing heavily on distribution. We have now launched the brand on Myntra, on Ajio, Amazon, all the marketplaces. we're looking at launching international marketplaces, Southeast Asia, Middle East, opening our platform, D2C platform internationally. And once we do this, which will take us the next 6 months to do it, post that we do have plans for offline. And the reason we are looking now at offline, because I feel that finally quick commerce is coming in, where you right now have 10-minute grocery deliveries. I think in fashion also people will need 30-minute, 1 hour. And that's where the brands which have distribution, which have the offline presence, they are going to get benefited by it. So we are right now aggressively looking at how do we get into quick commerce aggressively. So that's our like purpose behind looking at offline.
And want to go back to one thing that you kind of mentioned early on as well, but with more and more D2C fashion brands coming up, do you plan on creating any sub brands under Bewakoof? Or
yes, we have plans on that. As I said, that for us, each lifestyle category is a way to express, and we have been the category creator of expressive fashion in India. We're still the market leader in expressive fashion. And what we're doing is some of the larger segments that we're getting into, like activewear is a different universe in itself, and a very large segment. And innerwear is a very large segment. So for activewear, we launched a brand called Play, and that's what the brand is, and everything that we are doing as a brand. So one is adding expression in activewear, and second is making the activewear more friendly to the modern day life, where if you go out, you'll always carry your phone. So maybe can your jerseys, can your shorts carry your phone better? So we're looking into the functionality of the product so that you can play better. So Play is the brand name. And then there is another brand that we're launching in innerwear. It's called Underdog. So that's what our third brand is. So we are looking at each and every larger category with a separate sub brand strategy. And right now, these are the categories that we are launching in-house, but definitely we are open to acquiring also in some of the segments that we are interested in.
Well, and that kind of leads directly into my next question, but so you obviously have a positive outlook on that kind of PE model and acquiring D2C brands. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of a couple of brands, the Saro, Mensa, that have come up recently and been well funded.
Right. So I think like we are definitely not onto that strategy where you see that most of the consumer brands with time becomes a house of brands naturally. You will have under the broader market also, you will have different brands catering to different price points, different age groups. So Aditya Birla itself will have 5-6 brands like Van Heusen, Louis Philippe, and all these brands. Arvind has a set of brands. Obviously, most of the fashion houses and most of the consumer brand or FMCG companies, it makes total sense to leverage your resources, leverage your distribution across multiple brands, and that definitely increases profitability as you're using the same cost structure across multiple brands, and it brings the cost structure lower. So definitely there is merit to that. The interesting piece, which even I'm looking forward to, is how this whole Mensa, or let's say the Trashes of the world, will pan out. Because theoretically, yes, it has been built by others, right? But obviously, it has been built with time, where execution becomes the key. Where you execute really well on one brand, and then using this execution machinery, we then acquire more brands, right? Or maybe you build more brands over the time. The interesting model about Trasho is that from day one, you're going to get and acquire 5-10 brands, and then start running it, right? Which I believe some of the folks will be able to do, but it will require brilliance in execution. And if someone is able to pull it off, then someone will be able to create a house of brands, and that too in a limited time period. And I feel that given there is availability of capital in the market more than before ever, people are picking up ambitious projects. Maybe they'll fail, maybe they'll work out. So coming back to the question, definitely house of brands is a solid thesis, but then can you shrink those 10-year, 20-year timeline into just 2 to 3 year and achieve success is definitely a challenging task. But won't say that it's not doable.
Thanks for that. And one last question to kind of wrap up this segment. Can you shed some light on Bewakoof's culture, and as the company grew over the years, what steps did you take to protect it?
Yeah. So I think companies' cultures, they come from the stories of the way they were founded. They come from the legacy where how the company was founded, and also a lot comes from how the personality of the founders, how they drive the company, the personality of the initial team, that has an influence, and then also what you stand for as a company. So in our case, we really want to celebrate the spirit of entrepreneurship. The first word that I would put to the Bewakoof's culture is it's an entrepreneurial culture. From day one, it was always about entrepreneurship, becoming an entrepreneur, and we just wanted to trickle down and create more entrepreneurs within the company. And to create that, as much as we focus on people having ownership, giving freedom to people to experiment, to innovate, how do you solve problems with very limited resources. You can be hacky in your approach. You figure out ways, and you create resources. So I think that is something that we have trickled down to people in the company, and entrepreneurial culture is at the core of what we do. Apart from that, if I have to pick up other things to describe, so definitely our culture is inclusive, where there are young people, there are people across all ages. We have brought in professional talent, senior folks in the company, people from really diverse backgrounds. We become one place where there's a lot of emphasis on design. We have a great graphic design team, fashion design team, our UI UX team within PDT. All of these are the creative aspects. We have the content team. To the other side, we have data, we have business functions. So it's very diverse, it's very inclusive. It's very inclusive when it comes to gender. For us, having a healthy ratio of women in the team was really important from day one. And today also 50% of the organization is women. And in the leadership team also, like in the top 7-8 people, 2 are women. I think in the entire internet ecosystem, you will not see such a ratio. If the founding member team were women and they also count, then it's a different matter. But if you see teams, companies that are started by male founders, you will not see that higher ratio in the leadership team overall organization. So inclusion has been definitely one focus area. And the third focus area is, as I said, the brand side for lightheartedness. That's something that we try to do within our culture, that people at the end of the day need to have a good time. The culture has to be lighthearted. It has to be sincere, but also at the same time, it has to be lighthearted. So that's what the Bewakoof culture has been.
Awesome. And, you've reached a lot of milestones recently in terms of revenue as well as team. So congrats on that. What are plans in the immediate future, next couple of years? How do you see Bewakoof shaping up?
Yeah, so as I said, that we were the category creator in expressive fashion, and we want to be the market leader. And we now want to focus on the international market also. So when it comes to distribution, going international, and also going and doing well offline, these are definitely 2 big priorities. Second priority is the product expansion. Within fashion, we are covering everything. Activewear, innerwear, and footwear are the only things that we are not doing, and we're getting into them right now. And 5 years down the line, we would want to enter the home segment also, because home also is a lifestyle category where expression can become the differentiator. Expression is a need of the consumer. So this is going to be the focus area for Bewakoof.
Understand. And what do you see as challenges for D2C brands going forward, given you've been in the category for so long?
Right.
And there's a lot of money that has started coming in now, but you started a long while back. What do you see as the challenges going forward? Marketing costs increasing, too much competition. What's your sense?
Yeah. So I think what has been the blessing for D2C is going to become the curse for D2C, because internet came and it enabled right, the entire e-commerce. And then the entire e-commerce ecosystem that was created, it enabled the D2C industry to become what it is. Because I remember when we were early in the market, right? We were 3-4 years early building D2C and working on the thesis. Back then we used to call it internet brand. We had at that scale, like as a small company, as a company focused on one category, right? We had to create our own technology, manage our own logistics, own order fulfillment, everything we had to do on our own. But let's say someone starting in 2018 had Shopify just to start out, had a lot of logistics fulfillment companies, logistics enablers. Every enabler of every sort is available. So with very limited resources, you can start your business. That's what many people did. But the problem is, what tools helped democratize the entire brand creation? They are available to everyone. And India is an entrepreneurial culture. India itself is an entrepreneurial country. You just need like resources was all this country was needing, and now that has happened. How common startups are and people starting out and entrepreneurs are in this country, it's fascinating. It's not the case in the whole world. So I think all these tools are available for others also. What is going to happen is, now if you end up cracking up certain product market fit, a certain market, there are like 10 more hungry entrepreneurs sitting outside for the similar idea, and they're going to start out. And that is what is going to do, is it's going to fragment the market. So here, the ways to overcome this is, when you hit your product market fit, that's not enough. You need to create a brand also, so that when your industry becomes commoditized. Today, you might find out some niche segment that no one was catering to, come out with the product that you are the only one in that segment. But you should very quickly look at building a strong brand, so that when the market gets commoditized, people still pick you up, right? And then the second thing, every brand that has worked well and has been doing, and the brands that will come in future need to do, is that you might start with the niche, right? But that is not going to take you all the way. At some point of time, you will have to grow from a niche category, enter the mainstream categories, and then win that, and then go and challenge the big boys in their own game. It will mean going offline. It will mean challenging them where their strength is. So I think it's a long journey, but definitely rewarding at the end of the day. And definitely someone who is passionate about building consumer brands, the entry to market, the resources available, it never has been this easy. But as I said, the challenges still remain, but the journey is much easier than before.
Awesome. And just to close out, the reason why we call this Founders Unfiltered, what's one piece of unfiltered advice you received in your journey that really stuck with you and has changed the way to either look as a founder or as a leader? If you could share that with us.
Right. I think one of the advice that I was given like 5-6 years into my entrepreneurial journey, and 5-6 years back, was that I think what happens is, when you start out, right, your venture is your baby, and it always becomes your first priority. And in many cases, for people, it ends up becoming the only priority. And that's where your physical health, mental health, family, your relationships, they end up taking a backseat. Now you can have 2 such years, you can have 3 such years. Anything that extends beyond starts affecting you. One of the advice that I was given, and it was like very aptly put, was that it was given to me that you need to age as a wholesome person. It can't happen that you're really thriving, excelling in your career and your professional life, but your health, your family, everything has been put on a back burner for long. When you age, you need to age as a wholesome, and that might involve like a spiritual growth also. So that was one advice. And now when I approach work, when I approach leadership, I make sure that it's not only me. It might be the founders that I mentor. I try to get the same thing in the mind. It might include the culture within Bewakoof also, the team that we have. There also, I do make sure that people are keeping their other priorities intact. And what I felt that it actually turned out to be better, where in the short term you might feel that, okay, you're taking away that 2 hours that your work might have needed today, and you're putting on to other things. You could, and your work is a priority and it needs it today, and you're taking the setback of those 2 hours. But then I realized that this way you never hit a point of burnout. The race is really long, and you better become an entrepreneur, and become an entrepreneur as your lifestyle, right? Where if you have to do it really long, and if you have to play the long-term games, then definitely you need to have a balanced approach to life. That's something that was given to me, and I think that has worked wonders for me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, PK. Love the conversation.
Same here.
Thank you everyone for tuning in.